All right, hello everyone. This is probably a little bit weird. I'm trying to refurbish my microscope. So you may remember I got this during my eye issue last year. The corneal neuralgia caused by nerve damage. Then we were trying to investigate like what the causes of the different pain sensations were, and as part of like trying to figure out whether there was any kind of lice or weird bacterial floral overgrowth, did a series of cultures, did some microscopies of the eyelashes and stuff because no one else was doing it. Like not a single optician offered to do it, so I was like, well, I'll do it myself. So we got a microscope, but obviously since moving, it's been left in a state where it hasn't exactly been like clinically clean, should we say. It hasn't really been covered over. Also, I disconnected the camera at some point just to see how the actual block looked. What I mean by that is I wanted to eventually replace it with a higher quality camera, and I figured out how I can actually do that. But until I get a high quality camera, I don't want to make this non-useful by keeping it disconnected. So I reconnected it again, but obviously in the process of doing all of that, and this is not unexpected to me, obviously it's become dirty and damaged, as you can see there. So part of that is actually going to be the lens being dirty. So we got the objective lenses, and then we got the light being dirty itself, and then the actual camera inside is likely a bit messed up as well. So I need to refurbish it. But I can show you what it looks like if we actually try and gain focus on something. So let's get this into the light. That's actually just a shadow of the eyelash where it has been sitting. So there's an eyelash. Let's get that further in. There we go. So I might have mentioned in a video that may have already gone out that I'm going to be studying biomedical science in a more academic way. So probably doing it as a degree. At least that's the plan anyway, but you know how life likes to throw things at me. So I thought it'd be nice to actually get this up and running again so I can actually use it as like a legitimate part of the learning process. Let's just get that back in focus. So we're looking at the keratin on one of my old eyelashes. So obviously I've got to get it cleaned up, refurbished, etc., so I can get a clearer view. But then obviously, as you can tell, I've got this feeding in digitally, so I can use this as sources for like digital content as well. I suppose that could be for anything really. So on the texture side of it, yeah, we can use it for like recreating textures for microscopic type things for like visualizations. If we just had literally nothing on the screen, you can see that there's noise happening because the camera is so low quality. So we could feed that in and use that as like compositor sources for like comp effects. Literally, they see that scan lining going upwards. That could be useful. But also the microscopic world has just like so much weird and wonderful beauty to it. In terms of how far down we can actually go, so the thing is I've got like a 100 times objective lens on this, which is an oil-based objective lens, which means we need to use like a medium to look through, which I don't actually have, but I use a substitute in the form of hyaluronic acid, which gets the job done, but it's not ideal in terms of the index of refraction. But I'm not actually sure what magnification this camera represents the objective lens light as. Because in microscopes, you've got the objective lens and you've got the actual visual lens, and this actually magnifies or multiplies what you're seeing through the lens. This by itself, the camera, has its own magnification, but I don't remember it being stated on any of the paperwork what it is, so I'm not too sure, but I think it's quite high. We're just looking through the 40 times objective lens at the moment. Now I've got some lens paper with me. Let me see how much I can clean this up. Although realistically for cleaning the objective lenses, I will need to disconnect them. Maybe not necessarily, but it would be a hell of a lot easier if I could disconnect them so I can turn them upside down, then run like a camera lens cleaning paper over the top of it, and while dropping a little bit of isopropyl over the top to try and pick up dirt from it. Let's just get this to the lowest. Also, this whole thing is dusty, so let's remove that. First of all, just to get rid of the majority of the dust that started sitting on the platform, preferably without touching any of the lenses, but we're going to be cleaning them anyway. Yeah, there's probably a whole bunch of clinical people watching going, what the hell? This isn't a lab, all right? Calm down. It's a little home studio. We don't need to do things properly here. Remember, creativity over efficiency. And I also know that isopropyl on its own is not the best for cleaning the lenses, but again, it's my studio. I'm going to get some actual isopropyl wipes as well, just because we might as well sterilize the base while we're here. And the liquid will help to clean it. I am intending, by the way, in the future to expand the visual studies capability of what I have. So obviously that includes things like making a little photogrammetry setup so we can easily scan things in. And I'm looking into astrophotography as well for other types of things. Ultimately, I want to be able to do and see as much as I can going forward. And then see how we can combine that into digital space. But obviously, like the photogrammetry setup is going to be one of the most useful things for that. I just haven't been bothered to get that set up yet. But it's quite easy to do nowadays. So that's the general base. How do I disconnect this? I'm not going to take the whole thing apart just to do the light. Isopropyl will evaporate, so it doesn't matter if we get that everywhere. In fact, it's probably better if we do get it everywhere. Okay, that light looks really clean. But obviously, as we can see, the dust isn't because of what was sitting on the light. That's just a little optimization. I've never done this before on this microscope, so we'll see how this goes. That is just the housing, so I don't actually know if they can be disconnected on this one, or whether I'll just need to try and clean it. I might not need to disconnect it. Getting to the smallest one is a bit of a problem. Alright, hang on. Okay, now I'm just looking at the border of a glass sheet, just making sure that it is still like focusing alright. Yeah, seems fine. A bit of ghosting, but I don't actually think that's a problem with lens dirt. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The last bit that may actually be the most problematic thing is the camera. There's a 50% chance I break it irreparably. Power disconnected, camera found, and I see dust particles. That's what we're looking at here. Firstly, let me cover that. As clean as I think I'm going to get it. Quick test to see if I have destroyed it. Oh, okay, it's not perfect. See how I've left some marks on it. Not perfect, but way better than it was. Now the thing is, even though there's still marks on it, I hesitate to try it again because the power connector is getting more and more damaged as I do it, because it's the kind of like circuit power connector that's not really supposed to be removed repeatedly. I think Lon Foster, one of my patrons, informed me of that in an older video. So what I might do is I want to get a better camera to replace this one internally at some point. So rather than kill this one, I'll leave it in its suboptimal state as it is at the moment, and then at a future point in time I will get a new one to replace it afterwards. So that means that I'll still have something microscopy capable for now. So now obviously we got to take a look, see if we have better clarity now. I mean, immediately, you know, without those giant dust pieces, this is way better than it was. Oh yeah, that's not too bad. Obviously all this dirt is stuff that's actually on the glass because it hasn't been cleaned. Just realized I was looking in the wrong place for it. There we go. Oh cool, look at that. That's hanging off the edge of the glass. Actually, that looks weird. Obviously you're not supposed to see it hanging off the glass, but yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Obviously we've got the little splat to the left of the screen, but overall not too bad. You know, that's way better than it was earlier. And also, if I move this above, I can make this a bit bigger for you as well. So now we can do proper microscopy of things. So we can go 1 degree lower. This is the 100 times objective lens. So ideally, you have an oil with the appropriate index of refraction to help you see into it properly. But like I said, as a substitute, I just tend to use hyaluronic acid drops. Because again, this is a studio, not a lab. But maybe before we move on, before I get my lunch, let's do something a little bit funky, shall we? Shall we take a look at my blood? I have never done this before with the microscope, but it may also be a demonstration of how far I've come regarding my fear of like, you know, finger blood pricking, which I still don't do on my finger, but you know, who knows. Choose a pipette or just touch it on. Maybe I'll just touch it on. Don't worry, if you're squeamish, I won't actually show myself doing it, but we'll just see it microscopically. It's weird. I'm already feeling the anxiety. It's a weird subconscious thing. So I'm just prepping the area I want to do it, because obviously we want to be sterilized. Unlocking, applying, and there we go, lanced. Let's continue cleaning that. Then of course I will apply a plaster. There we go. All nice and done. It's not sticking very well, probably because of the alcohol. So I'm just going to get a piece of glass to lay over the top. Now, unfortunately, the glass that I've put on top is not pristine. It's not the cleanest thing ever. As long as it doesn't move, you might be okay. And the blood is actually dried kind of already, so I don't know how much we'll be able to see. Weird structure already. Maybe it's just because of how it was pressed down on the skin. We're going to go straight to 40. Whoa, hello. Problem is, because I'm not trained in this, I don't actually know exactly what we're looking at. Is this just like a superstructure of plasma that's just kind of been congealed after being like pressed down on the skin? Or are these actual cells clumping together? God knows, but I'll learn about it one day. But the point I wanted to make here is that when you look at things under a microscope, everything looks completely different. And that opens up opportunities for capturing things for digital purposes and artwork, and obviously study as well. Now we can try and go to the 100 lens as well. I might actually at some point 3D print a few little helper things for this microscope. For example, with the objective lens, you get a kind of adhesion happen when the oil is touching the glass, which can move the kind of glass panel on top. And I tend to weight it down with a couple of other glass panels. But I could probably make something. I mean, you're supposed to, you know, kind of clamp things in place as well. But, you know me, I have my own ways of doing things that are a little bit weird sometimes. So I'm just going to do my weird prep of this. Now I try and make contact. I need a little bit more. All right, contact has been made with the lens. There we go. Wherever we are looking at, it's an interesting structure. And it does look congealed. I suppose that's what blood's supposed to do. Coagulate. But I'm also just struck with like how little detail there is. It's just so, I don't know, uniform and almost impressionless. And I'm not seeing any microbes either. You can see microbes down at this level. Certain sizes of them, right? Little creatures moving around. Obviously, they shouldn't be in your blood, right? Obviously. But, you know, this should be contaminated just by manner of me not handling it properly. Oh, okay. So this is where the hyaluronic acid is actually starting to contaminate underneath the glass panel. So we can see it starting to spread there. So the acid is actually now mixing with the blood. So it's now kind of liquefying it from its dried state. Whoa. Weird. Look at it flow. So there's an obvious reason for me wanting to actually start learning about all of this formally is because, you know, you get so close to the boundary of it without actually knowing how to utilize it, what to do with it, etc. But I think it's great, like being able to see it and to watch it and get hands-on with it. So weird. And it looks so alien like this as well, like the little clump structures moving around. These might be air pockets in between. The current of like cellular plasm just moving through it like ice on the ocean. Kind of makes you get all existential. It's kind of freaky as well, like the walls closing in on a battle royale. Think about all the little cells that are living down there. Let's move that one away. It's so weird that, you know, obviously all that red color is just because... Oh, I think 2 pockets of fluid just connected. Yes, there we go. So now the extra currents here are because you see how quickly that happened there. The 2 pockets of the hyaluronic acid underneath the glass panel connected, which means that they're kind of equalizing their force now. And it's that equalization that gives you the currents in different directions. And now it's kind of settling because it's homogenizing. Very cool. I need to go and help my family move some furniture in a sec. See, this is where you can start extracting some interesting patterns here. If I get that in focus. All right, I'd have to leave it there. So it's a bit of a random video, but maybe you found it interesting. I'm glad that I've got this a little bit cleaned up now. If you made it to the end, put some kind of lab-related emoji, and I'll see you next time.